Hello and welcome to the Alpha Edge Podcast, the show for men over 50 who refuse to fade out, slow down, play small, or settle for average. I'm your host, Kevin English. I'm a healthy aging expert, coach, and founder of the Alpha Edge, and I am here to help you get and stay strong in every dimension of your life, physically, mentally, emotionally, morally, and spiritually. You're here because you're ready to reclaim your power, to own your masculinity, and lead your life with strength and purpose. If you're ready to sharpen your edge, revive your drive, and lead like a man who's built for more, you're in the right place. All right, man, let's get after it. All right, man, here we go. I want to talk to you guys about something today. I think a lot of us, deep down, we know that this is true, right? As men, we can build the life, we can build the business, we can earn the money, we can have the status, but still feel completely empty inside. My guest today is Dave Rossi. Dave is a former Silicon Valley CEO who had it all by the world standards. He had success and wealth and a growing company. He had the cars and the houses and the boats. He had all of that. And yet, behind the scenes, his life was quietly falling apart. And what followed was a complete and total reset. And out of that reset came this very powerful idea that the traditional quote unquote alpha path that a lot of men are chasing might actually be the thing that's breaking them. So in this conversation, we're going to unpack his concept of the Omega Man, a man who stops performing, stops chasing approval, and starts living in alignment with truth, purpose, and real inner strength. We're going to talk about burnout and identity and why so many men are successful on paper, but they're miserable in reality. And most importantly, we're going to talk about what it actually takes to live as a man of integrity in today's day and age. So if you've ever felt like you're doing all the right things, but something feels off, this episode's going to challenge you. All right, man, let's meet Dave.
I was somebody who had plenty of assets in terms of strong family background, education. I was given all kinds of talent, including great hair and athletic gifts. And I failed so spectacularly trying to use my work ethic and my talents because I was focused on the wrong thing. I built a big life. I had a company, 130 employees at the time with my wife at the time, 4 houses, 2 buildings, 2 boats, kids, 3 kids, private schools. And the whole thing came crashing down because I really wasn't happy. I was living a life of complete and total misery. And the success masked what was actually missing. And when I finally hurt my back, re-injured my back from football, supposed to have back surgery, scheduled for February 29th, 2016, I was supposed to have back surgery on 2 of my discs. I canceled the surgery and I changed my life. I hit reset and I looked for a new way to live completely from scratch.
So is it fair to say then that, was this your dark night of the soul? Did you hit rock bottom? What was the state that caused this reset? It sounds to me like outwardly you were winning. 4 houses, probably beautiful wife and children, a couple boats, business. That's by culture's definition, you were succeeding. What was going on that caused this reset? How did that come to your mind?
At that time, so I had this back surgery, this pending thing. I have this marriage that was not fulfilling, which I lied to myself that it was because I was in so far into it, 3 kids. I wasn't talking to my parents, who I was really close with, but my wife was kind of someone who divided and conquered, so kind of cut them off and didn't want them to be part of the process because she was a controlling person. And so I kind of let my parents go in a way. My best friend passed away, which was really hard for me to deal with. I'm talking best friend from 3rd grade. I could call him a soulmate. He was so close. And when he died, I never really reconciled what that meant. And I had a real hard time for a long time. And so when I came to grips with all of these things and my business was suffering predominantly because my marriage was the business and it was really not functional, I re-examined my life. And when I actually let the pain seep in is when I would literally walk behind my house in the forest and cry at the top of the mountain at how miserable my life was. Now, outwardly, it didn't look that way because they didn't see that what I sacrificed to have those things, what I sacrificed to meet the world's report card of success. But that didn't mean happiness. It didn't mean fulfillment. And I was blind to it until then. And then it all seeped in. And then I began to read books, find teachers, and really put a lot of effort into living a different life than the one I'd built up until that point.
Okay, so a total reset from where you were. You write in the intro of your book, you say men are silently falling apart. Is that what you're talking about? That we are living this performative life. We are living this life based on a scorecard that doesn't come from within or from above, but it comes from what culture, from what others think.
Well, yeah, I think it comes down to what and why are we on earth for as a man? Like, what are we supposed to be doing here? Is it making money and then going to play golf with the guys once a week and going to have drinks at a football game or baseball game? Like, what exactly are we doing here? And I think when I came to the realization of what life is all about through some of the books that I read, it's really about being happiness. I mean, being happy. And if you don't have happiness, and I don't mean external happiness like we kind of talked about, I mean internal contentment. Something external is going to the next football game, it's going to the next golf game, it's going to the next ski trip. Those are the things that are not happiness. And happiness should be defined not as something hedonistic, but a growth of intelligence, a growth of gratitude, a growth of giving, a general feeling of gratitude and contentment. And I did not have that. I didn't even know what that was, and no one even taught me what that was. And I don't think many men look back and look at life that way. They think, hey, I'm winning. But they do silently come back a little unfulfilled. I mean, I know I did, and I think a lot of people do. And I think for me, if I didn't have that crash, I don't know that I would have changed. It kept on taking more and more things for me to examine my life. I wish successful people would take a step back and examine because they could and they would have more fulfillment. But there's no like thing to make them do it. You know what I
I
mean?
do
I think
know.
if
Yeah.
someone got hurt,
Yeah.
yeah, I
100%.
think your story is someone,
My,
yeah, that can
I've got a
expand on
similar
that.
sort of thing where I crashed rock bottom. For me, it was physical health. I, in my mid to late 40s, just found myself as sick, overweight, and as unhealthy as I've ever been. Basically, long story short, spent 3 days in a hospital with my quote unquote fake heart attack, is what my family now refers to that event as. But it changed everything for me because
Yeah,
my that was my baseline. That's what I knew. My close peer group was we all had beer guts. We all had the same bad habits. We did the same things, and we would joke that it's all downhill from here, and it sucks getting old. And I had this very fatalistic attitude, but I didn't know I was sick. I didn't feel sick until I got unsick, and then until I started to
yeah,
chase this more optimal health, and I realized, oh, your baseline can sometimes be, it can be tough to break out of that without, like you said, it's some sort of an event or crashing, bottoming out, something like that. Now, I want to go back to something you said. I want to pull this apart a little bit because you said you feel like, you mentioning happiness and kind of describing that. In my mind, I think of happiness as, hey, I got a new car. That makes me happy. But joy is more what, in my terms, is this more soul filling thing. And I can be joyful even when I'm perhaps not necessarily happy the way I frame it. But you had mentioned purpose and meaning. And I feel that when I look out at guys in this age demographic, I'm primarily talking to men over 50, 50, 60s, even 70s. I feel like so many of us have become disconnected from purpose. We've become disconnected from joy. I feel like most of us don't have values. We don't know what our values are. We haven't taken the time to really carefully consider that and to understand this is what I stand strongly for. This is what I stand strongly against. Most of us, and I think without that, it's going to be really tough to know why you're here, what's your purpose, what's your mission. So we're not mission driven or purpose driven as men. Does that resonate with you? Do you see that? How do you relate to that?
yeah. Well, I think you said a lot there. Yes, joy is another word for joy is inner happiness.
Sure. I'll buy that.
And yeah, and I think to kind of unpack a lot of the things that you said, purpose is a very confusing thing.
Mhm.
And a lot of people have it wrong. I think for successful men, they think their job, I have purpose, I have a job or I have a family, but then society quickly creeps in into your mind and says, "Oh, you don't do enough philanthropy." Oh, okay. So maybe that's purpose, right? I need to do something good for purpose. It's not necessarily real purpose. I think that's the confusion that people have is when they don't know what it means, they can't grab to it. The second thing is, values, you can have them, but they're difficult to maintain if you can't honor them. And what prevents you from honoring values is identity, right? Your identity is survival. So if you have a masculinity issue or a low self-esteem issue, that's going to take a higher order of behavior than to honor your values. You're going to be a slave to identity and survival than you are to values. So I think in terms of purpose, and I want to make this very clear, purpose does not need to be anything other than just being alive. Because people think purpose is some mystical, magical thing. I got to find my look. If you can't find it, then you don't have purpose. You're lost forever. And I think this really comes from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, in that purpose is that you're alive. You have the opportunity to grow and learn and expand. Just to be alive is the purpose. And if you give that purpose, then you'll never run out of purpose. You'll never be confused of purpose. And I think the way that lives in real life is humility. You and I said this in in the book, live every day what you learn at a funeral.
Mm.
We often go to a funeral and we say life is short. Oh, life is so short. And isn't life short? And I just lost my dad and life is so short. I wish I had more day with him. And then the next day you're like upset about small problems. If you can take that humility, which means life can be extinguished in a second, and live that every second, that is purpose. And that takes practice. You just can't believe it and then live it. You actually have to interrupt the brain and actively live with humility and gratitude for every second of your life.
Yeah, and that takes some intentional practice. I think that for men, sometimes we think of masculinity and maybe even purpose as these cultural traits that have changed. And even in our lifetime, right? In the 50s, masculinity was one thing. In the 60s, it did a 180-degree turn, what it meant to be masculine. And there's these cultural sort of assumptions of what we should be and how we should. I think you described it as this performative behavior, and I need to live up to this standard and all these external things. And I think what you're talking about is finding this, is it fair to say, this inner peace with the authentic you? Is that too woo woo, or am I getting closer to that?
Let's make it unwoo woo.
There you go.
And let's kind of connect it back to values. I don't think anybody who ever cheated on their wives or made some shortcut in work said that that was high value. They probably knew it was low value, but they just couldn't honor it. And what stops them from acting with honor and values is pressure and inside pushing inside of you that has this Darwinian animalistic drive to be a man, to be masculine, and they see a path to getting that. And so we always compromise. It's situational morals is what we see in society versus objective morality, right? I'm situationally moral because I can be, but the second it gets hard, the second it challenges my manhood, the second it challenges my identity, the second it challenges my ability to survive the way I want to survive, I can marginalize these morals just a little bit. I can rationalize why this is okay, right? No one caught me. It's not that bad. But the reality is truth exists whether or not it's out in the open or not. You know it. And to honor values is to be content, to say, I'm okay letting go of some identity. I'm okay to feel like I'm not surviving. It's okay. I'm going to be okay. And when we don't know the steps or we don't know the process or the system, then it's harder to practice it. So in real life, what it looks like is actually processing information and layering on values and convincing yourself that I want to honor the values regardless of the situation. And that does have merit, even if it's not real money in my hand at that moment. From a long-term, energetic way of living perspective, it does have value.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
100%, yes. So then, is it fair to say that one of the qualities of being a masculine man would be to honor values even when it's difficult, even when nobody's watching? But I have decided that this is important to me, whether it's an honesty, integrity, and honor, loyalty, whatever's important to you, that I have defined that. I know what it is. It's clear in my mind. And when I am not that, I am out of alignment with my authentic self. Fair or not fair?
So do you hear the paradox in your question?
No.
So the paradox is, um, it takes the most manhood to do difficult things.
I believe doing difficult
And yet
things is a masculine trait.
Right,
So
right, and
personally,
we often don't.
and we very often don't. Yes,
We avoid vulnerability.
correct,
We avoid doing the right thing. We
correct,
rationalize why we're
correct.
not going to get away with it. We say it's okay. We say no one's going to catch me.
Hmm.
My peers say it's okay. My friends
Sure.
say it's okay. I'm allowed to do this, so it's okay. Because what's really hard to do is to be a real man and do the vulnerable things and be your authentic self. Now, authenticity is a difficult word. We can dive into that in a second, but that's what it's like to be a real man, is to do the difficult things, no matter how hard they are, with no reward and no gain and nothing to get, because it is honorable and objectively moralistic. And if it's hard, that's where you win. And the problem as an animal, because we are still animals, we're not going to get any food or survivability by doing tough things. I mean, let me put it this way. Survival of the fittest. We're all animals. Every animal, all they do is survive. A tree looks for light and a tree looks for water, right?
Yep.
Every fish looks for food and looks to mate and lay eggs, okay? We're the same way as humans. And on an animalistic side, being vulnerable denotes less likely to survive. Okay, so as an animal, do you act vulnerable? Yeah, bad idea. Do you show defenselessness? No, bad idea. So let's just stay away from that as an animal, okay? Number two, society tells you it's not really strong to act or look defenseless or vulnerable. You get laughed at, you get teased, it feels awful. Why do I want to show defenselessness? And as a man, you're trained even more not to act and behave this way because you're not a man if you show these things. So there's 3 benchmarks that say, don't act vulnerable, don't look defenseless. But again, we are cognitive beings. There's more to us than animal aspects, right? So when you step up and beat these 3 things, that's what really makes you elevate. That's what makes you really strong, is to beat all these things and live into the remarkable nature of a human being and the consciousness that we have. That's your authentic self, is to be real for no gain. And that's hard to do.
Be real for no gain. That is difficult to do. I agree. And I think that culture plays a big role in that right now, particularly when it comes to masculinity. What does that even mean in today's society?
No perceived gain.
No perceived gain.
Right.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yes.
Right.
Or the way
there is gain.
There is 100% gain. Yes, I'm with you there. But no perceived gain, or gain the way, quote unquote, the world would measure that. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Is masculinity, does it exist outside of cultural definitions? Do we just make this up? Is it completely subjective, or does it exist? Are there actual, real masculine traits and vice versa, feminine traits? Do those exist outside of how we think of them culturally?
Well, culturally, yes, but culture has hijacked these words. And so, what we think about being a man or having masculinity, it's performance, it's providing, it's strength, it's courage, it's doing tough things, although we don't often do that. What society has done is said, you're not a winner unless you do these behaviors. Now, one of the things I talk about in the book is for 700 years, masculinity was just male traits and femininity was just female traits. It was, we have testosterone, they don't, we're stronger. That's masculine. You're a male, right? Genitalia, you're different, right? But about the 50s is when it started changing into behaviors. Masculinity became behavior based. And it's changed almost decade to decade with different political and cultural values, and kind of goes up and down. But now what's happened is it kind of changed in decades, the John Wayne era, and then you saw the 60s and the feminine movement. So this term masculinity, the behaviors associated with it kind of changed. Now it's a completely moving target, like culture to culture, week to week, social circle to social circle. If I go to a party in Palo Alto or a party in Austin, Texas, or Houston, what a definition of masculinity is vastly different. So do I need to get a download on what the masculinity definitions are in Houston, Texas to be masculine, right? It shouldn't be so tied to these perceptions. If you're courageous, be courageous. You don't need to associate it to masculinity. If you're a provider, then be a provider because you want to be, not because you're pretending to be. And so society is now defining the behaviors of winning. You're masculine if you that's winning. But you have to do these things to win. And so what happens as a man, we want to go have those things and be that winner and look like I'm that winner. So now we follow those traits and we pretend and we obfuscate and we curate. And it's like the peacock throwing up its big feathers. We paint the big circles on our feathers. But what we're doing is telling people, like me for my feathers, but not for me, the bird. And so we're asking people to accept our fakeness, but they don't know it. And that's where things fail. It's not sustainable to sell a picture rather than yourself. And I think that's what's happening with this crisis right now.
Yes, I agree with you. When I look around at what's happening, especially at the extremes of masculinity, we've got just there's a lot of ridiculousness out there, especially with social media. That it seems like people have hijacked the masculinity movement. But I would argue that there are divine masculine traits that exist outside of culture and that they are timeless and they will always be that. Things like courage and honor and loyalty and integrity, provision, toughness, discipline, adventure seeking. I would also argue things like the capacity for violence in defending the weak, etc. These things to me just exist. And they are things that personally I aspire to. But to your point, I don't want to be those things because somebody expects that of me. And I don't want to not be those things because somebody expects me not to. And so to your point, if I go to a party in Palo Alto or if I go to a party in, rural Texas, let's say, I want to be the same man. I want to be aligned
Right.
in integrity with, and that's what I mean by I think so many men are so lost. They don't have purpose. They've never defined their goals. They haven't given this much thought, right? The way you have clearly.
But that's not, yeah, but that's not what's happening. People do not, they do live with veneers
They most certainly do. I
and they
agree.
do
I'm not
live with
arguing that point.
masks. Yeah.
100%. There are,
Yeah. And I
yes.
think, yeah,
Yep.
with respect to the divine masculine, this is a term that I see a lot in the divine feminine. Um, a lot of culture gets kind of mixed and sidetracked. And there's a book called The Kabbalion, which talks about the 6 laws of, Hermes. And it's like a very old Egyptian way to live. And one of the laws is divine masculine and feminine. But they don't talk about it in terms of sexuality, in terms of a male person or a female person. They talk about it in terms of traits on the same spectrum. So you have to understand femininity, which is growth and rebuild and nurturing,
Yes.
to understand the masculine, which is tear down, restart. And you need both, but it's not that you're one or the other. You're somewhere along that spectrum. And so, but you have to understand what it's like to tear something down to be able to nurture it and build it back. And so these divine masculine and these divine feminine traits really aren't associated. We associate them with sexuality in terms of being a male figure or a female,
Right.
person. But they're actually traits and they're ideas and they're states of being, not so much behaviors. What comes with those states of beings are what you said: provider, courageous, a good person, fight for the weak. Those types of things are more prevalent in tearing things down to rebuild. This is bad, let's get rid of it, right? So they are real. They are real things. But society has made them either more or less valuable. And that's
Mm.
where the push comes for men to wear a facade. Because if society rewards me for acting like Andrew Tate, I'm going to act like Andrew Tate.
Right.
If society rewards me to act like Donald Trump and grab women's crotches, then I'm going to do that because I can now be a winner if I do that. And that's where it's falling. And the confusion is why people adopt and keep flip-flopping. It's the confusion of keep changing that makes it difficult. And that breeds isolation and depression.
100% with you. Yes. So I agree that femininity and masculinity is a spectrum, right? And a man
Yeah.
who is all masculine and no feminine is a toxic masculine man, to be sure. We have to have
Yes.
the ability and the awareness to, at times when appropriate, be nurturing, be caring, be loving. Those are very important human qualities. So
Well, rigid frameworks are difficult.
rigid frameworks are, in
It's a,
fact,
right.
difficult. Right. Right.
And destructive. Yeah.
And destructive. Okay. No, I would agree with that as well. All right. So let's shift gears here a little bit. In your book here, this alphas die early. You've got this concept of going from an alpha man to an omega man. Let's start with a couple definitions. What's an alpha man? What's an omega man? And then let's kind of talk about what's that path.
Well, that's a kind of a very loaded question as well. The word alpha changes a lot
Yeah.
in
Right.
society and
Right.
culturally.
This is the Alpha Edge podcast,
It
right?
right, and I think they're also very positive traits. I think the alpha was meant to be the reward. Meet these traits, and you're an alpha, and so they
Mm.
are admirable traits. It's become an archetype that has been very very used for manipulation, for social media, for advertising, for politics. And it's meant to be a pinnacle. And I think they're admirable traits. But the point of the book is that if you're wearing a mask to be those things, then it's not really those traits. I'm pretending to be those traits. It's the feathers, not the bird
Yeah.
again, that I think is it. So in terms of the archetypes, archetypes are helpful to understand the behaviors that society assigns to a name, and the omega is the last. So alpha is the beginning, omega is the last. I say omega because my approach is to get rid of all masks, to have the courage to be your authentic self without having to get societal reward, to do things for the sake of doing them, for a purpose, like you say, for authenticity, for just to have the inner strength of your own pride to honor objective morality and not subjective morality and be that person that does not need to draw fake colors in my feathers. To say, this is who I am, this is my bird. I don't need fancy feathers. Take me or leave me. I'm going to be who I am without the need to meet society standards. And the more people do that, then those societal standards will soften and be less rigid. It's all fake to begin with. We just fall into the trap of that and say, oh my God, I have to color brighter circles in my little peacock feather,
Yeah.
right? And I think if people rejected that more, they could be more authentic and not have to pretend. So Omega is the man that doesn't pretend. It's the man that doesn't play the game. He's the man that has the strength that doesn't need to say, I need to be somebody other than who I am.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Yeah, that in authentic alignment with the true self. Now, you've referenced objective morality several times here. What is that? What defines objective morality for you?
Well, objective reality is, or
Or
objective morality is doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason, no matter how hard it is. And where that gets compromised is when it's tough. And so I imagine every, man who cheated on their wives or cheated on a girlfriend or cut corners in business or obfuscated and pretended to drew little circles in their pretty feathers to look better, right? Everyone that did that may have known it was wrong, but they rationalized why it was okay at that time. There was something inside of them that convinced them this is okay, I can do this. I won't get caught. I deserve it. I got mistreated, so I'm going to do this. And that's subjective morality. They're compromising an objective standard for a situational event. And that is where we lose. That's where we stop being a real man. That's where we stop being authentic. That's where we live society's view of success and falsities and fakeness, right? To compromise what we really deep down truly know is right. We always know what's right. The power comes when you can actually carry it out. And that's where it's hard. To say no when you should is hard.
Agree. How do we know what's really right? Where does that come from in your view?
Everyone knows. I
So
mean, I think
it's
we
kind of a
can get,
universal law that is written into our DNA or souls. Is that fair?
I think, yeah, it is, yes, but it's not always accessible. Sometimes the rationalization is so heavy that we completely miss it. Deep, deep down inside, we all kind of know what's right or wrong. It's very quiet, right? The parts of our brain that fight for identity and fight for survival and fight to rationalize are the part of our brain that's the old part of our brain, the amygdala that has chemicals attached to it. It can inject chemicals of serotonin, dopamine, and adrenaline, and it has very powerful. The part of our brain that has that morality is the neocortex, and it's not connected to any kind of chemical center. So it's just the thought without the bat in your head of chemicals. These surges of adrenaline and these emotions of butterflies that come up and the giddiness of being able to do something to reward us is very powerful. But the second you look and listen deeper, you know that voice is there, right? Now, if you don't, and you do something that isn't rewarding, something that doesn't propel your life, that's where you have to stop and say, I missed it. I have to listen more next time because you can't consciously mess up your life. You didn't consciously do it, and neither did I. Deep down inside, I kind of heard it, but I blocked it out with all this noise. When I let my mind calm down, I could hear it. But then you have to honor it. And that's what's hard. It's easy to avoid vulnerability. It's easy to avoid not getting swept away or getting swept away. It's hard to stop it. It's hard to stay grounded. So there is universal morality. I don't think it needs to be written down. We kind of all know what it is, right?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. I do feel like there is universal right and wrong. I feel like that's not a culturally appropriate thing to say in this day and age of just relativism, where you have your truth and I have my truth, and we better both honor each other for that. But yeah, I agree. I think that we all do deep down. I believe it's because it is in fact wired into our souls that we know what is right, what is wrong. And the tricky part is, like you said, how do I live that out? And
And that book gives steps to that. Yeah, and that's the hardest part is to
it's
live
the
it out.
hardest part to live
Like,
it out.
look,
That's the pathway that I
yeah.
wanted to kind of get to. And obviously, you guys, if you want to get more detail, definitely get the book, check it out. But I'd love to hear just some ideas at a high level. What are the steps for the man who's kind of resonating with this, going, wow, yeah, I do live a pretty performative life. Yeah, I am taking some shortcuts here, and I kind of know I probably shouldn't. Maybe I don't know my purpose in life. Maybe I'm not sure what I stand for and what I stand against. How do we move from this alpha, as you describe it, state to this omega state, this true authentic self? What are some of the steps along that path that are the big levers that we can pull to begin living our most authentic, aligned selves?
And that's a great question. The first part is the basics. I call them the basics. And these things are like awareness, authenticity, vulnerability, and then action, and then repeat, right? It's like modify and then repeat. These are the five basics that you kind of have to get to go to the next step. Then I have a list of challenges, things that are going to challenge you that you should be prepared for, how to deal with. And then I have 15 plays. These are actually the more refined plays that you want to implement, kind of like living every day like you learn at a funeral, right? Called it funeral life. And that's one of the plays. But you really can't live that unless you have awareness. And the way I explain awareness is, awareness is like a coach. If you're a diver and you do a dive, your coach says, hey, tuck in your chin. You didn't see this, but I saw this. Tuck in your chin. Oh, okay. That's going to make me do better. We have to be our own coach in life and have the awareness to look at ourselves and say, wait a minute, I kind of lied to myself. Like I didn't tuck my chin in. Like I kind of got to be honest. That was wrong. Okay. It's like, okay, I added $15 in my expense report. No one will catch me. No big deal. But it's still stealing. You know it's not right. No one will catch you. You catch yourself and say, yeah. I know that's like a little indulgent, right? Or you drop some trash and you walk right by. You know you dropped it. Have the power to go back and pick it up, right? It's the shopping cart. Those are the kinds of things that you can't lie to yourself, and you need that level of awareness to stop. And Viktor Frankl put it in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, between stimulus and response is a small moment in time, okay? Stimulus, I dropped some trash. Response, keep walking. That small moment of time is, before I walk away, I'm going to pull a morality, just pick it up. I know I did it, but pick it up. If I don't, I'm lazy, and I know I am. That's harder to do. It seems simple, but it's truth. It's objective morality to just pick it up, right? So that's what I mean about those basics. Vulnerability. If you cannot be vulnerable, if you cannot say and be honest with yourself that I suck or I blew this, then you're gonna have a very hard time growing
Really tough to
with
grow without being vulnerable. 100%.
authenticity is another
Yeah.
one that most people don't even know what that is. Authenticity means your ego or your identity or your persona, as Carl Jung would call it, doesn't show up. A lot of our personas make decisions for us. So or we're being unauthentic. We're making a decision based on persona, not something deeper. And that's another thing that's really important in this process. The plays are a little harder, you know, not competing, not putting yourself in positions to compete, living funeral death. Play number one is don't be afraid to die. Play number six is have reverence for life. So that's kind of a paradox. Don't be afraid to die, but value life. That's kind of a tough thing to do. But as animals, we're predisposed to be afraid to die, but being afraid to die is different than living. And so I think the book really lays out the steps, lays out how to be aware, lays out how to be authentic, lays out how to be vulnerable, so you can begin to use the more sophisticated techniques the book offers at the end.
Yeah. Love it. Absolutely love it. So you mentioned a couple of times a few key concepts of Stoicism. Are you a Stoicism fan? In the
I
kind of
am.
classic
I
sense
am
of
in a way.
Stoicism, right? I know that word gets thrown around a lot,
Yeah.
but in the classic sense of, because the think about your death is one of the classic tenets. Is it within your control? If yes, then take righteous action, I believe is the thing. And if no, well, then I'm going to move on. I'm going to let that go. But you've mentioned a couple of very stoic pieces of philosophy there. Big stoicism guy?
Yes and no. The thing with Stoicism as a framework is it also is rigid and it's based on discipline. And it doesn't take any effort to live the life you want to live. It should be a choice. Right? If you go to dinner and you order a hamburger and you wanted it, it isn't hard to order what you want, right? If you didn't want a hamburger, and you didn't order it, it's hard to get away from it if you really want it. That's where willpower comes in.
Mm-hmm.
That's where discipline comes in. So you're fighting against what you actually want. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
So
let me play
when you
devil's
want to eat
advocate
the donut,
though, as a nutrition coach. Let's say, okay, what I really want is to have some Coca-Colas and some French fries and a giant submarine sandwich, thing like that.
yeah,
What's the right action?
exactly. And if you fight against it, is willpower, and you're fighting it. For you, it's very easy to say no because your choice is I want to be healthy, and it's very easy to be healthy. It's very easy to say no to those things. That's because you've shifted your
There we go.
mindset.
That's what I'm trying to
So
get
this
at.
is the
Yeah.
life that I want to live.
Yeah.
I've made this shift. This is my life. It doesn't take any discipline. I don't need a stoic quote or phrase or be disciplined to live the life that I want to live. And so I like Stoicism to the extent that it's not someone you're fighting, it's someone that you flow and you live. And I think you can see that. And I'm sure even a transition with your life, it might have been hard to say no to the Coke and the big sub sandwich. And now it's easy because you've transitioned from I'm fighting against it to it's the way I want to live and it's easy.
Right. And I'm in alignment when I make choices with this higher version of myself, this aspirational version of myself, which is not performative, it's not pretend. It's who I genuinely want to be and am becoming. But I do think that there's this idea that I have this aspiration that I am chasing. I have these goals and they're necessary in my view because I want to have a reason to do things that, in this case, honor my body, honor my physical health, honor my mental and emotional health, my spiritual health. I want to make decisions that will honor that as opposed to a hedonistic decision that will give me a quick dopamine hit. Say, for example,
How would you define alignment? How would you define alignment?
I am living in alignment with my values. So, for example, I have a mission statement. It's on my screensaver. I read it every single day. I share it with the men closest to me because I want them to hold me accountable. But I am in alignment when I do things that honor my higher self. Does that make sense? Or is that too woo-woo?
It does. No, it's not woo-woo at all. So you said a key thing, which is when you honor that,
Mm-hmm.
that is the part that people miss, is honoring it through behavior. To
Yes, I
think
agree.
about, I want to having the goal and having the want are two different things. To actually do it is alignment. And that feels good. But that is where it becomes hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where people get confused. That's where they rationalize.
Yes.
That's where they obfuscate. That's where it disintegrates. And then it's an excuse. And that's the difference between living like an animal that's living a loop of animalistic behavior of win, survive, a myopic body that's saying, it's easier to get this food than to actually have some longevity, right? There are the short-sighted goals that take you away from the long-term goals that you've shifted to be more evolved, and not in a better or worse way, but it's a higher evolution of mindset, right?
Yes.
And so I think that's exactly what we're talking about being aligned and making life better, is to live in alignment and what that looks like and how to achieve that.
Yes, that is really what I try to push here in this podcast and this project is living in alignment with a higher self, with being true to that self and not living hedonistically, not living according to the whims of culture, which is going to come, this is good, this is bad. And then tomorrow that's going to be the exact opposite, et cetera, but really being grounded with taking the time to understand who you are, why you're here. You don't have to have my values. That's not the right thing for you, but you should know your values. You should know what's important to you and why it's important to you. And then you want to structure your life in a way that look, I'm a big fan of discipline and grit and willpower, but you should structure your life so that you're not constantly depending on those things, that those are important elements, but that we have this, like you said, flow. I feel like I am in a flow state when I am in this alignment, when I'm doing these things that meet this these aspirational goals I have for myself. Am I perfect? Far, far from it. But
Yeah.
because I have this ideal in mind and I've taken the time to consider what it is for me, and to be honest, I evaluate that from time to time. I change it. And then I try to make my decision making based on that as opposed to whatever feels good right now. Make sense?
And let me add something to that. There's nothing wrong with having hedonistic activities like a golf game or a
Sure.
football game or those things. The difference is that when they drive the need
Mhm.
for them, when they drive emotion, it takes away from inner happiness.
Yeah.
Let me explain happiness in this way. You can't try to be happy. Okay. Happiness is not found by trying to have fun, which you can still do. That's an add to your life. Happiness is found by removing the things that make you unhappy. So, how do you become happy without searching for happiness? And you do that by removing anything in your life that makes you unhappy. Like the need to go to a football game and drink with the guys makes me sad until I go. And once I go, I'm happy. And then it's over. I'm unhappy. Being internally happy is removing the things that make you unhappy in between those stages, right? So what makes you unhappy? Well, I don't have anything fulfilling in my life. It will be fulfilling when I go to the game. Okay, so let's remove that aspect of it. Find fulfillment until that point, right? So you begin to remove stress and doubt and judgment of yourself or of others. You begin to become compassionate for others.
Mm.
You don't let others ruin your day. You begin to live life from a much easier place of forgiveness and openness and open-heartedness and open-mindedness. And life gets really, really easy when you make effort into removing these things. Then these hedonistic type things are an added piece, not a required piece, right? So I want people to know that it doesn't mean you have to go be a monk
Right.
and and have fun. It's a balance of making good choices to steer your life in the right way in a continuous, sustainable manner. And that division is emotion that drives bad behavior, is what it's about. Whatever takes you off of the path of being happy isn't sustainable for happiness.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, that's well said. I love that. And it's not like I don't ever have dessert. It's not like I don't, I
Of
have to
course, yeah.
in
But you
that
don't need
context.
it.
But right, exactly. All right. Well, it seems like this is a perfect transition, given how we ended that right there, into the role of spirituality. It's Now we're talking about purpose and meaning and living for something higher than ourselves, and we're talking about these higher purposes and aspirational selves, etc. What is the role of spirituality for you and for today's men? How does it fit into this alpha to omega journey?
Oh, I love that question because I think spirituality is so misunderstood. I think if people watch my Instagram or TikToks, they would not say it's spiritual, but it's anything. It is spiritual. It's 100% spiritual. I call it spiritual behavior. This is spirituality to me in a nutshell. If you're running and you get tired, your legs are beginning to give you feedback to your brain. Your lactic acid's building, your heart rate is higher, your face is getting hot, your body's sending you feedback, and your brain says we should stop. It's a biological response, a mental response to feedback, okay? And another part of you says, no, 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 no. We're going to ignore this feedback and we're going to keep going because we know it's good for us. That's spiritual awareness. And if you keep running, that's spiritual behavior. You're doing something beyond the feedback of the body. Okay. Let's take it to fear, jealousy, anger, self esteem. There's also feedback that we get. Hey, you're not so great. Hey, that person's better than you. That person's an 800-pound gorilla and you're a 400-pound gorilla. That's low self esteem. That's the feedback that you're getting. As spiritual awareness is, wait a minute, there's no such thing as valuation. That's not real. I'm not an animal. I'm beyond that. That doesn't define my worth as a person. I'm not going to play this game. That's a spiritual behavior to go beyond that. There's feedback and there's winning, right? Everything we talked about, the Stoicism, is about being spiritual. Spiritual is having the power to act beyond the pushes of the body and stop right there.
Does that come from outside of us or from within us in your view?
Both. I think there's a channel. There's something. The consciousness inside of us is almost scientifically proven to not be within us. There's a lot of quantum mechanics that are now catching up with 3,000-year-old texts like the Dhammapada or the Upanishads or Patanjali or some of these ancient authors. Quantum physics is beginning to catch up to these philosophies now. I think consciousness comes into us from outside of what we can contextualize, but it also has a receptor inside of us that can receive it. And so this power is within us. The purpose is we have to stop acting like an animal to live it. And that's the duality of our existence, is that we're slaves to biology, even emotional biology,
Yeah.
but we have the power to beat our biology. And that's spirituality.
That's spirituality.
It's all the same stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, do you subscribe to like a divine reality or a God or some sort of a structure, or where do you fall there personally?
I've done a lot of research,
Mhm.
Hindu religions, Buddhism, Christianity, I mean, you name it. They all essentially, in my research, say the same thing. Even Christianity, the kingdom of heaven is within. I see as a nod to consciousness is the kingdom. You have to find that. That takes awareness and practice to be self-realized. And the more you can escape the body, the more you're less a slave to the body, the more enlightened, the more you ascend, the more you grow, the more you become the Atman. There's all these phrases in lots of different religions of what that means, right? And so the more you excel in this self-awareness and this, I'm going to say discipline for a second, but I'm going to move it to choice,
Okay.
the power of
Yeah.
choice, right? That is what all religions try to teach. So, in terms of rigidity, I'm an anti rigidity person. I also realize that the more I know, the more I realize I don't know.
Mhm.
So, I keep open minded to what I don't know. I know what I know right now, and I'm open to realizing that that may be wrong. And that in itself is a spiritual behavior because the body, the humanness in us, the animal in us, has predictive behavior for survivability, which makes us inherently closed minded and closed hearted. So to be open minded is actually a spiritual behavior that goes against our biology. And so I don't have any rigid dictums or any heavy roles. I think the traits are to live open and fluid, to always be honest with myself about what I should be doing that's right. And when I mess up, admit I was too weak to do this at this moment. So let's figure out how to find more strength to do it right the next time. Like, why did I fail picking that trash up? Was I tired? Was I stressed? Was I in a hurry? What made me violate something that I know is wrong and walk past it? And that's just accepting I blew it. How do I fix it? I know there's no shame, there's no blame, there's no guilt. It's just about knowing that I am weak at times and I got to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. No perfect people, huh?
Yeah, I mean that's to me that's what sin is that we fail to our body. And that's why in Christianity God forgives us for our sins because we really can't help it.
Right.
I mean, I think of all the things that I've done that I couldn't help.
Yeah.
My first wife, I married her because I couldn't help it. I made a decision based on a perception, not on objective reality. I thought she'd be good for me. I thought she was a good partner. She displayed signs of being a good partner. But where I was in my life made me prone to missing that. I was the animal trying to
Mhm.
gain, not someone sovereign and aligned to see things more clearly. And you think about all the mistakes that we make that we can't help. It's okay as long as you improve on them. And that's what I think everything you're doing is all about.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I believe we have a sin nature that is a part of the human condition, certainly, and it's our job. I think you would agree to work to transcend that our biology, our animal selves, and what you would call that our spiritual selves. Absolutely love that. All right, Dave. Well, as we're wrapping up here, what's next for you? Where are you going next? I mean, you've got a couple books under your belt here. You've obviously given this a lot of thought. Absolutely love your work in the space. What's on the horizon for you in the next year or so?
I wrote these books to really help, and I really want to help. Anyone that wants help, I'm happy to give it to them. I don't charge for any coaching services. If people ask me for help, I help them. I hope people buy the book and help themselves if they can. I don't have if they can't, I get it. People are where they are. I run a very successful luxury construction business in Silicon Valley. I'm keeping my business going. It pays the bills. I love it. It's great. I love the people I meet. I probably have a couple more books in me. I like writing books. I like distilling ideas from ancient cultures and making it palpable and understandable for people today. I think for me, I just keep learning and growing. And I think it's for me, not for gain. I do things for myself. And if people can gain from that, that's wonderful. It's available. And it's kind of how I live my life.
Right on. Is this your calling? Do you feel called? Is that fair?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Right on,
Yeah.
man. All right. Absolutely.
And I think that calling means I don't need any gain. It's not for a
Right.
career.
Right.
It's just because I'm here to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You feel called. Yeah. I would challenge you. Where does that come from? Where's that calling come from?
Well, if you've read the book Journey of Souls, which I've read a couple times, it comes from a lot of places. I think there's something much bigger beyond this physical world that is very complicated and hard to kind of contextualize. But I think there is something bigger and deeper than what we can see. And I think it comes from something that I don't know, but I feel it innately. I feel it as an intuition. And I think the reason why I feel it is because I'm not being pushed to it to survive. It isn't my survival component. And I feel like it's not so much that I have so much personal satisfaction in helping others. It's that I just want to make it available and people can do with it what they want. I think that's my calling. It's just to get it out there. I don't need anybody to read it. It's not my push to get them to. I can't make anyone do anything, but I feel this push to at least make it available. And I think that's why it's innate for me.
I absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. Yeah, I believe you have a creator, and I believe he has put that, as you said, that receptor inside of you. Sounds like you're tuning into that and receptive to that. So absolutely love the work you're doing. All right, Dave, as we're wrapping up, where do we want to send folks? Obviously, we've talked a lot about the book, Alphas Die Early. You guys, I will make sure I put a link to that in the show notes. You guys grab a copy of that. Where do you want to send people to learn more and connect with you?
My website, daverossiglobal.com, on Instagram, Dave Rossi Global, and TikTok, Dave Rossi Global. I do a lot of posts. I don't curate very often. I just kind of spit them out and people can take what they want from them. I don't put filters. I don't even comb my hair most of the time. It's just about information. And I believe and I walk the talk because it's who I am. And if people want to listen, great. And if not, that's okay too. It's everyone's life.
Love it. All right, Dave, I want to thank you so much for taking the time, coming on the show here today, sharing all your wisdom, your knowledge with us, your experience with us, your passion for this. I absolutely love the work you're doing. Encourage you to keep it up.
Kevin, thank you so much. I really enjoyed you and enjoyed your show so much. Thank you.
Right on. Okay, men, that's our show for this week. Don't forget to download our free guide titled How to Raise Your Testosterone Naturally. You can find the download link in the show notes for this episode on whatever app you're listening to this podcast on. If you've enjoyed today's show, here are 3 ways you can support us. Number 1, share this episode with a friend. Number 2, make sure to like and follow this show, and please consider leaving us a 5-star review. Number 3, give us a follow over at Instagram. We're at Alpha Edge Army. So that's Alpha Edge Army all run together. I really appreciate you men taking the time to listen. And until next week, stay strong.